All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. I have John Ramirez with me on the phone today, or on the hook, and I'm going to read the description and tell John what the headline is. But in a couple minutes, we're going to chat with John because he's the contest winner of who actually took my dare to go sit in a house and talk to a seller. Whoa! John actually put blindfolds on and went out there and did it. And I'm impressed. So we're going to go through that today. So we're at episode number 267. And the name of the podcast is Contest Winner Reveals About How Freaked Out He Was. And here's a description. It is no secret that going to a seller's house to make an offer for the first time is scarier than speaking to a crowd of 10,000 people. Most manufacture in their own mind how the first visit in the house will go, to only find out it ends up not being anything like that at all. Today, we have John Ramirez, as I said, on the line. He entered my contest several weeks back, on a dare to go out and visit sellers to win an interview right here on this podcast. So today we plan to find out what happened when John went into a house and actually talked to a seller for the very first time. How the seller responded to John's questions, some things John noticed while there, and even sharing his inner feelings. You brave soul, you sharing his inner feelings about this whole, talking to a seller thing, right? Then I plan to answer any questions he might have, any confusions that might be there that maybe we can help him for his next visit. And this entire podcast is 100% improv, which means there is no script or preparation. It's 100% just ad hoc. We're just going to talk. And so I think you should just listen up and let's see what we can learn from John's experience today. Okay? Before I start, I need to just take a couple minutes because this is episode 267. If you are a avid listener of my podcast, and there are many of you that are, you will have noticed a lot of weirdness in the last month. So here's what happened. I ended up with COVID pneumonia. I literally went to bed one night. The next morning I woke up thinking I had the flu. I was in bed in my own house for 5 days. I ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks with COVID pneumonia. I don't want to be dramatic about it, but I definitely wondered if I was going to leave that hospital breathing and not in a box, because it was pretty freaking scary. So I want to shout out to my staff, which is not a lot, mostly my daughters, both Emma and Jesse. Sorry for the cough. This is just how it's going to be today. Emma and Jesse pulled together, both my daughters, to make sure the podcast kept going. Jesse and Sean, who is a partner, actually did a podcast together. Emma pulled some past shows like the Real Estate Mafia and How to Sell a House and a few other shows to kind of cover my ass while I was out for the count. Okay. So I'm back. I made it. I have a cough that sometimes is here, sometimes isn't. I feel a million times better. I'm still not 100%, but I am back working. If you're on my email list, you'll have noticed that I am sending emails again, and I am working. My monthly activities were postponed for a month, or this month for a week. Like my deal hunting monthly mastery was postponed for a week and all that stuff. But I'm back on my feet, going again. So if you're curious, that's what happened. I'm sorry for kind of ditching you, but I think you understand that when you get out for the count like that, you really don't have much choice, right? So anyways, John, I want to really, really, really thank you for being here, taking your time, and sharing with the others your experiences. Why don't you just take a couple minutes? I think you could do much better than I can, obviously, because it's your life. and just explain to us who you are, where you are, like, do you have a job, just that kind of stuff. Just give us a picture of your life.
All right. Well, my name is John Ramirez, obviously. I work a full-time job, W-2 employee. I work for, a school as a maintenance guy. So I'm the maintenance guy who does real estate on the side. As far as real estate, we started out, my wife and I, as buy and hold, and we really transformed. We like the creative side, and plus it allows us to grow quicker. So that's why I've really taken hold of the creative, and I really want to,
You listen to a lot of these podcasts too, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are your hours at work? What do you work, a 40-hour week job?
Yeah, 40 hours a week, 6 in the morning, 2 p.m. So I still have a little bit of time in the evening to make something happen.
Good. And I know that we have spoken in the past, no disrespect, but you're not like a computer IT guy. You're not any of that. You're just like a normal folk that get up every day, you and your wife, you go to work and you do your thing, but you have this dream. I mean, you're not that old, but you have this dream that you can pull real estate together and maybe someday replace your job. I don't know if that's the main thing, but mostly enhance your life later on. Correct?
Right. Correct.
Okay, good. All right. So let's talk about the first time you were actually in this house. Actually, let me back up a little bit. So here's what I decided to do. I decided that my entire life as a teacher, as a coach, as a online, whatever you want to call it, is all about getting people to do shit. Like too many people find it entertaining to listen or watch videos and don't do anything. You know what I mean? They talk to talk, and they read the book and they get into some of my groups, like, for example, if you haven't gone there yet, if you go in the chat, you'll notice that I have a new link. It's called Bill's Lair, Lair. And that's where I have a group that's called Let's Talk Real Estate. And it's free, doesn't cost anything. But there's not a lot of people in there, but excuse me, there's a good chunk of people in there. And we just talk real estate, right? Create real estate. Because where do you go to do that? Like even your RIA meetings, your real estate association meetings, you go there once a month and you chat with some people, but it's once a month. This is everywhere. So the biggest thing that I have a challenge with is getting people to do stuff. And the hardest thing in the world to get anybody to do is to confront talking to a stranger, right? Like actually get somebody to pick up the phone. And it's not even cold calling these days, because like our for sale by owner list is not a cold call, because they're selling a house, they're advertising it, they want you to call, right? So you're not cold calling. So I have all these, texting and, scripts and opening scripts and closing scripts. And my entire focus is always on how can I get somebody to do something. So I came up with this crazy idea. Let's have a contest. See how many people will actually respond. How many people will go in houses and actually talk to sellers for real, which it was as expected. It was a low number, which is fine, because, most people don't realize if offers aren't being made, you aren't getting paid, right? So the big thing that I did was thought to myself, and I know I'm rambling on here. I'll get to John in 1 minute, but I just want you to know what he signed up for, right? So I realized if I'm asking people to sign up for a contest and give me their name and their email address and all that stuff, I should give them something in exchange. So what I did is I created, and of course I'm biased, a work of art. I created a 14-day email course that takes you all the way from finding a farm market to finding hot leads even how to do the paperwork, where to find the paperwork, how to do the paperwork, how to get legal advice on the paperwork in your city or your backyard for 25 bucks, how to sell the house. I mean, it's like, I wrote it in a couple of days, and I go back and I read it now, and it's like, it's extraordinary. And I'm not saying that because I wrote it. It's just because there's a lot of stuff there. So, John, I don't know. I haven't asked you yet, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but did you do any of that email course? I know you've done a lot of stuff, but what did you, I mean, did you even open it? Did you check it? If not, that's totally fine. I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely went through the material. It's good material. You just have to do it.
Yeah. Right. That's the biggest problem. Yeah. So I made it really simple. I made it really easy to follow. I made the action steps so they aren't difficult, but you just got to do it. All right. So you entered into this contest knowing that you were going to actually go talk to a seller. That's freaky enough, right? So I think that's part of the reason why people, you know, I mean, I had a bunch of people, don't get me wrong. I had a bunch of people enter the contest. It's just in comparison to how much my list is and how many downloads I have on a podcast and all that, it's a small number, right? So let's kick it off here. So on this visit, when you went there to this first house, tell us about, well, first of all, tell us about the visit a little bit first so we can get an idea of what happened. And then I'll go back and have some more questions. So, like, what happened when you got there?
Okay. Well, when we got there.
So when you say we with your wife?
Yes, my wife and I.
Okay, good. Go ahead. Sorry.
We met the young lady at the door. She kind of showed us around. It was a tax house. So they're behind on their property taxes, so they're really worried about foreclosure.
So just to clarify, you're in Texas, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So people know where you're coming from. So you're in Texas. So what is a tax house?
Well, this one's just behind. It's behind in property taxes, so they've gotten foreclosure letters in the mail saying if they don't pay, they're going to foreclose on the house. It's a free and clear house, but they still owe taxes every year.
Okay, good. So you're walking around the house and you're talking to the people. What's going on?
Well, as far as what's going on, my wife's kind of talking and, you know, keeping the young lady entertained, and I'm trying to grasp what we're looking at and what we're going to have to face if we do take this house on, because it's an older house that needs some repairs. Been neglected over the years. It was also inherited. So the people who inherited have not been paying the taxes. It's just a mess.
Interesting. So when you were in the house, did you use my check sheet for looking at it?
Yes. Yeah, I actually have a folder put together that has everything in it. So when I go to the house, I grab that folder and bring it with me.
Nice. So in this email course that I'm talking about, I actually put a 5-page inspection form, which is not so much for the inspection of the property. It's mostly to look at and not miss things. And the reason why I did that is because I did a house inspection one time many years ago, and it was a bank-owned property, and back then the banks were being very criminal. And imagine that, a bank being criminal, right, John? So they removed the furnace and all the furnace belongings. And it took me, believe it or not, about 15 or 20 minutes to realize it. You would think that you would notice that right away, but when there's no furnace there and no pipes or ducts or nothing, you don't realize what you're missing if you don't see it. So that's what prompted this whole checklist or this form, is to just make sure you look at everything. You know, make sure you don't miss things, you know, light fixtures and hallways and stuff like that. So, so this check sheet, which you get in the email course, which, by the way, if you didn't get the email course, you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com /email course. And you can get it there. There's a new page there for you to get it from. So it's flippinghousesforrookies.com /email course. And it's a 5-page document. And the way it works is you check off, there's a little index on the top. And you check off not only that it's there, but the condition of it. And what I suggest you do is while you're using this form is you actually, if there are repairs, you don't put attention on the repairs. You just take a picture of it, and then you deal with that later, right? And then once you're done with the inspection, there were some questions. Did you use those questions, John?
No. I can't. No, probably not.
Yeah. Okay. So what I did is I just, you know, because if you are in a house, you need to generate conversation, but I want the right type of conversation, right? My idea of building rapport with a seller is talking about the house. You don't need to talk about their kids or the weather or any of that. That's minuscule. So we like to talk about the house as the rapport. So tell us a little bit about the house. You said it needed work. So what are some of the things that you saw or you think you saw?
Most of the major things were, I mean, it's a lot of cosmetics. Somebody had also ripped up most of the flooring, and so it was just the cement, the slab. So
Okay.
it just needs a new flooring and cosmetics update. It's a 70s house, and it hadn't been touched since the 70s.
Yep.
Other than that, I mean, it was
Nobody was living there?
yeah, somebody actually lived. They live there now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, good. So it needed some stuff, and obviously we're calling you the maintenance man, so I'm assuming that these things could be probably handled by you fairly easily. So how scared were you before you went in the house? Like going up to the days, obviously you made an appointment, right? Mm-hmm. So what was going through your mind and what were you thinking about prior to going into the house? First of all, were you scared?
Not necessarily scared, just nervous.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you think of somebody coming to visit, you know, I'm not a very, you know, I'm not a professional type person, you know, I'm a maintenance man. So I've always dealt, you know, I've been in a lot of jobs and, you know, never anything that I feel I should be.
You're not a salesman.
Proper. Yeah, I'm not a salesman. There you go. And so that, you know, that's one of my biggest hurdles and obstacles. I don't mind talking to people. That's not my issue. But I'm not good at selling.
Yeah.
So I like it knowing that I can go in there and offer something. And if I can't, cool.
Right. If they say no, then it's totally okay.
Right. Exactly. And once I learn how to get over that, it's not as scary. It's just you're more worried about your performance and how, you know, maybe I got a big mouth, so something might slip out.
Well, if you follow the scripts and stuff, which are very easy, by the way, you just bring them with you and put them on a clipboard and just read off of them, and then you write the answers down. I mean, it's very easily done. I can tell you that having helped a lot of students and clients, the one thing that you guys all have that I don't have, and I wish I did have, and when I say this, I get support tickets on this, so go ahead and send your support tickets because I'm not going to change my mind, is I wish sometimes I was brand new, because then I could tell the seller, hey, I'm brand new. This is my first deal. Can you help me do this? You know, I will go in, you know, full-hearted, both feet, gung-ho, and do all the work and get all the things that I need to get done. I have connections. I have this. I have that. I'll do all the legwork. You know, just give me a break on if I make a mistake. You know, I have the opposite. I'm not allowed. I've done hundreds of deals. I'm not allowed to make a mistake. You know what I mean? So it's harder, I think, on my end. So having that advantage of being new and telling somebody this is your first deal or this is your first time talking to somebody is a huge advantage. Okay, so you have this anxiety or this fear or whatever you want to kind of label it So how did you manage this? How did you, like, days coming to, or seconds before knocking on the door or ringing the doorbell? What did you do? What were you doing in your mind?
Well, like many things, I like to put myself in uncomfortable positions a lot. So my heart's always racing. It's, it's something I'm not comfortable doing, but I just do it. I mean, you have to do it, because if you don't, then you're not going to get to what you want.
Right.
How do you get over it? You don't. You just you don't get over it. You do a lot of them, and even sometimes after you've done something so many times, you still get nervous, but you continue to do it.
There's times where I still get nervous. I still get nervous when I go to a house or I make an offer. I still get nervous.
Yeah. I don't think you can ever completely get over.
No.
It completely.
The definition of anxiety is not knowing what the future is, or not knowing what's going to happen. That's what anxiety is. So, yeah, all you need is one bad personality, and it doesn't matter how much experience you have. You get one asshole, and the whole thing changes. Right? So it doesn't take much. Now, fortunately for me, I live in Connecticut, so I have, that New York type of an attitude. It's like, who do you think you're talking to? You know what I mean? But I have found that's a special talent. I grew up with that. It's, not everybody has that, especially in Texas. You guys don't, guys talk to one another that way. You know what I mean? You're very cordial, very polite. You know what I mean? So you're not going to just tell somebody to, go pound salt, get away from me. You know what I mean? You're gonna be much more polite about it. All right. So once you got in the house, what did you do? Like how did you handle things? Like, specifically, what did you actually do? Do you remember?
As far as what? I mean, I'm not.
Well, you knock on the door, they answer the door, you walk in the house. So, like, what was the first thing you did, or like, how did it get going? How did it get started? What did you do?
First, we'll just break the ice with the seller. Just kind of have a short conversation, and then we got into the tour of the house, and I kind of just let her take lead and show me what she wanted to show me and what she thinks needs to be fixed and where the problems are. I didn't really, I let her lead. Right. And then if I had any questions, I would stop and try to get that information. If I could remember it, I try to remember everything at the same time while taking all this in. So.
Yeah, I talked to Pete about that a lot in a lot of the past podcasts. What people don't realize is when it's your first time in the house, there's a lot going on. Like when I go in, the first thing I ask, are there any pets or anybody else living here? Because I don't want dogs jumping on me. I mean, I don't dislike dogs. I just don't want them jumping on me. Or sometimes you'll walk into a room and they'll freak out. You know what I mean? So I do the same thing. I kind of let the seller lead the way. Let them do the show and tell. But you're trying to absorb the property, like get the lay of the land. Like the layout and like where everything is. And you're trying to see if there's anything missing, like we were talking about, right? And you're looking, you're like looking for the pros and the cons. And you're trying to listen to the seller talk to you, because they're telling you some of the most vital information you could get while you're walking around, because they're casual and they're relaxed and they're in their own home. And I have found some of the best situations of why people are selling during the tour, because I just listened, because they would say little things like, all these boxes over here are going to blah, blah, blah street. And I'll be like, oh, what's at blah, blah, blah street? Oh, well, that's where I'm moving. Oh, when are you moving? Oh, in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? But they didn't tell me they were that. They're like, that's just an example. So you want to catch those things. And I don't want to make this sound difficult, because it's a natural progression. Do you agree that when you're there, all your senses are like tuned up, right? And you're like really paying attention.
Yeah, I agree. It's like doing anything in life. The more you do it, the better you'll get. Yeah. When I first became a maintenance man, and I might forget a tool, I had to run back and get this tool. I might, it's right. Once you get better at it, you know what you need and you know what to do.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Which is why I made this check sheet type of thing, because I don't want your attention to be on that. I want your attention to be on the seller talking. Right. So how much did you learn during the tour or the inspection? Do you feel like you got to know the seller a little better?
Oh yeah, yeah. I learned a lot actually, and I learned to be a little bit more comfortable with dealing with sellers. I haven't quite gotten that asshole yet.
Yeah, well, there are not many of them. They're very. I mean, they're about 2% of the population, and usually, like for example, I haven't done an appointment in a month because I've been ill. I'm going out today. I'm a little nervous about it. I got to look at a 3-family, but I didn't pre-qualify the guy or anything. He's just, he's Spanish, and he's like, you want to buy the house, you got to come look at it. So I don't know if he has a mortgage. I don't know anything about the house. So I could be there 5 minutes and kind of tell the guy, it's in Waterbury, which I don't normally like to buy in that city, but I'm definitely of the philosophy that, numbers are numbers, and I haven't done an appointment in probably a month and a half, maybe a month and a half. So I just need to get back out there and just do something, you know what I mean? Just kind of crack the ice a little bit, but I know I'm in control of how long I'm going to stay there. That part I know. If I don't like the guy, I just tell him, see ya. I'm not putting up with this, and I'll just skedaddle, Okay, good. So, was it as bad as you thought it was going to be?
No, not nearly. So, it was a lot. It was much better than I thought it was going to be.
Good. So give me the contrast. Like, what were you thinking before you went in the house, and what was it actually like? Like, give me a good picture of each one so I can understand how you were thinking. Like, what were some of the things you thought were going to happen that never even came up? Can you remember?
Well, I mean, one reason I was nervous because the lady kept saying, the place is tore up, it's a dump, and it actually wasn't that bad. It was just dated, so that went better than I thought.
Okay, good.
So the appearance of the house was a lot better than expected. I like
it. It is that way. It's always much better or much worse. It's never exactly the way they say it is.
Yeah, so I'm glad she built it up the opposite way instead of saying it was a nice gym. I enjoy talking to people and going out and hearing the stories. So that's, I like that part.
Okay.
But again, you never know who you're going to get.
Right.
And I guess that's what makes me nervous. You just never know who you're going to run into and how they're going to react, or you're at their house,
Right. And so when you were thinking about going to the house, what were some of the things you thought might happen? I mean, what were some of the scenarios you were running in your mind that you were nervous about? I mean, one was the condition of the house. You told us that. Were there others?
No, really just the attitude of the person.
Okay.
That's one thing that, that's, if they have a good attitude, I'm okay. If they don't, then, I worry about getting somebody with a bad attitude. That's my biggest thing.
Okay. That's very educational for me, John. That's very educational for me, because nobody's ever told me that.
Yeah, I don't want to deal with jerks. Like you said, you can leave whenever, but sometimes, it can ruin your day.
Right. My father-in-law, who is 83 years old, or ex-father-in-law, who's 83 years old, had a saying, and it took me literally 20 years to figure out what it really meant. I mean, it's so simple, but it literally took me 20 years. He used to say, don't let an asshole ruin your day. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much what we're talking about. It's like you got somebody that's being a jerk. If you let them affect you, they won. If you don't let them affect you, it's only words. I mean, what's that saying? Sticks and stones might break my bones, whatever that is, right? It's only words, right? So if you did a good job on the phone with the pre-qualifying, you're probably going to have a good or general idea of what the personality is going to be like, if it's going to be tough or if it's going to be easy. Now, I've had both. where I thought it was going to be really tough, and I get there and they're really a sweetheart. And usually, to be very stereotypical and very chauvinistic and whatever you want to call it, and I don't mean to do any of that, so it's just how it works. It's usually older white men that have had property before and think they're experienced that put up the hardest front. They're the ones that are like, you know, I know what I'm talking about. Don't come here and try to screw with me. You know, and then once you get there and they realize you have some knowledge, they kind of lighten up a little bit. You know what I mean? That's my experience, you know. Though I have had, I just recently was trying to put together a deal with seven buildings with a elderly woman, and man, she was sharp as hell. I didn't put the deal together because she, at the end, I said to her point blank. In fact, I just told this to a guy yesterday a lady on the phone yesterday in Wethersfield, Connecticut. I'm like, don't sell your house. You know, this lady with these 7 units or these 7 buildings, you know, they're 2 and 3 family and 4 family. I'm like, you got a sweet deal. These things are all paid off. You're like in your 60s. You don't have any trouble. You have maintenance guys. It's like all your life you work for this. Don't give it up. So you have to pay capital gains and give the government for what? You got a great machine here. Don't sell it. You know, same thing with the lady yesterday because she started talking to me. You know, my assistant talked to her. Wow, my assistant talked to her, and she was like ready to do a finance deal. I started talking to her. I'm like, where are you going to go? She can't replace the house. You know, so when you're really talking to people and really trying to help them, sometimes that happens. You know, you just kind of tell them the truth, like don't sell. Right? All right, good, John. So we keep getting off. I keep getting off topic here. So it wasn't as bad as you thought. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Unless you feel like we've already covered it. It wasn't. So you get in the house. When do you realize it's not as bad as you thought? Like when you're there or not till later?
Well, I guess once I got there and, you know, introduced myself, like I said, she was alone, so I brought my wife along with me, just so she would be, you know, more comfortable. Yep. And, you know, once we met her and she started, you know, I was a little bit more relieved.
Good.
But then that let me focus on what she was saying and what the actual overall conditioning and everything like that. Just that anxiety being gone let me focus on other things. Right.
So we talk about that in coaching. You have to get through your neediness to find out their neediness. Right? You got to get over your neediness. You're wanting to do the deal to find out how they want to do the deal, right? So I had a question here. Give me a second. Let me pull it back up. So were you surprised, and this may or may not have happened to you, I know it happens at some point, but were you surprised at a couple things? Number one, how easily they talk to you. And number two, how easily they just give information, personal inner information. Were you surprised at that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, she gave a lot of information. And actually, you know, my wife and I spoke with her a little bit. And before we left, she was actually in tears just from her, you know, giving her story and all the problems she's been going through. And they're afraid, you know, they don't want to lose the house because it was given to them by their grandfather and they can't pay the taxes and, you know, just the whole story.
Right.
So, yeah, it was, but when you can help somebody, they're willing to open up, I think, and give you all that.
So that tells me that you did a really good job of making the seller feel comfortable, not being intrusive, even though that you're in their house, and that you were actually there and got the message across that I'm here to help. Because otherwise you wouldn't have been able to get that far with them. So well done on that. That's fantastic. That's really well done.
Thank you.
So what was the most surprising thing that happened to you while you were there or during the whole transaction or the whole correspondence?
I wouldn't say surprising, but it was more, I guess it just opened up my eyes a little bit more, and, you know, just getting more comfortable dealing with sellers. It's different to buy off the MLS and then put it up for rent. But when you're actually going in and dealing with sellers, it, you know, just this let me know that they're people too.
Right.
They need help just like sometimes we need help.
So that's always the answer to that question when I ask it is they're just like I am.
And that just let me know, you know, they're like me. So I don't need to be scared. I don't need to be worried. If I can help, I can. If I can't, then maybe I can get them to somebody who can.
Right. And that's important. You know, I forgot which podcast I talked about it, but, you know, the easiest thing in the world to do in business that is never, ever, 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 ever done, because it's so simple and in plain sight, people don't see it, is go find your best customer and do some sort of a profile of that person and learn about that person, and then go find more of them. Right? So that's what happens with houses is after a while, when you get in enough houses, you'll start to notice the people that you click with the most are like you. You know, they have personalities like you, they have lives like you, they're, you know, usually within this, you know, within a certain age range, you know, and so when you first start out, the thing to do is to just talk to those people that are like you or have common interests that you have. And when you do that, it'll feel more natural for you and more comfortable for you to get through your beginning stages of getting over talking to sellers, right? So it sounds like this happened to you. You know, you get in a house and, you know, you understood their problems. You understood what's going on. They opened up to you and told you about their life story, right? So with that, I want to segue into a couple more quick questions, and then we'll jump out of here, okay? So here you have this person in front of you, right? And just to our listeners, let me just paint the picture so I can make sure it's very clear on what I'm talking about, okay? So you have this person that's in front of you, and they've just spent the last 20 minutes, half hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, pouring their guts out to you. Telling you about their life and their travails and how they got to where they are, how sorry they are that they're there, and why it's hurting so much to the point where they're crying, right? So, of course, I'm embellishing that because that's what I do, right? So, because I'm a marketing guy. So, at that point, at that exact point, John, you've had this many minutes, we'll say 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes of her talking about this, which, by the way, prompted itself. It wasn't anything that you did other than just being nice and being polite and just kind of, I mean, it's not like you had some special salesmanship skills or you asked some tricky question or it was the script that did it. It wasn't any of that, right? It just naturally happened, right? So I'm going to ask you in a minute if you bought the house, which I know you didn't, but I just want to get to this point. Once you're there in this spot that I'm talking about right now, how hard was it for you in your mind to actually talk about an offer or solutions? So in other words, she gives you all this information, right? Like all these things that happen to her, you know, tax sale and the repairs, and you have all this data. How hard was it for you at that point to actually start coming up with some solutions that we would call an offer.
Well, actually, I guess with the more information you have, it seems to become a little bit more simple to kind of find a route that will work.
Right. I think that's the point that I'm trying to make is that, you know, it's not like you went back to the textbook and said, oh, the loan to value ratio is this, or the math is that. You're standing in front of this person and you're naturally wanting to help them. And the solutions just start to formulate in your head. Is that correct? Or, I mean, because I talk about this all the time, but you know, I want to hear from somebody other than Pete or myself or one of my guys. I mean, you know, it's a natural thing. It's just not something I made up. It just happens.
No, yeah, absolutely. It just, while they're talking, actually, you know, what you've been studying will pop up. You know, maybe this or maybe this, and then I just kind of let them know we have several solutions we can offer you, and then you guys can pick one and go with that.
Right.
I mean, not like that, but you know.
But it is that easy, right? I mean, in your head, it's not like some, you know, like you have to go back through the textbooks and remember all this stuff, because so many of my new students try to memorize everything before they go in that first visit, because they don't want to look bad, or they don't want to be embarrassed, or they think they need to close the house in an hour when they're there, right? Where if you do that, first of all, you're wasting your time. Second of all, it doesn't happen that way. It happens the way we're talking about right now, because the seller's talking. I mean, I've been in houses with somebody, been there for an hour and a half, talking about all kinds of stuff. They'll say one sentence, and I'm like, what? And change the whole deal, and we spend an hour working on another deal because they didn't tell me something, right? Like, for example, I had a deal I was working on. Let me think. Last couple of days, I was talking to somebody about a deal. And, oh God, I can't remember who it was. And I talked to them for 10 or 15 minutes to find out it needs to go through probate. Right? So, I mean, it wasn't a big deal, but it was like they forgot to mention, oh yeah, because they think they're the power of attorney and they can make the decision. They can't. It needs to have a final court approval, right? So it doesn't take much for those things to happen. So my point is that even though, you know, so many of my students go into a deal thinking this is what we should do, they got the map already laid out, but they don't have the feedback from the seller. You know, what is the seller's desire? What do they want? And as you have these conversations like you're talking about, they kind of come out. And as you're listening, like you said, they just kind of manufacture. Right? So would you agree with that? Because I know that I don't get this. I mean, I know I'm doing a lot of talking today, but would you agree that that's what happened?
Yeah, I kind of look at it. I guess I think of it like a process of elimination. Once you get some information, you can eliminate certain things right off. Okay, this is gone. This is gone. Now this is what I have left.
That's good, John. That's very good. I'm going to use that. That's very well stated. So you're going to omit the types of deals you could do.
Yeah. And then once you do that, it takes so much off your plate. Now you can focus on what you can do. If you try to put everything in the box you want it to go into, it might not work.
Right. That's very insightful. That's awesome information. Awesome information. That's so true. It's exactly how it happens. Wow. I'm really glad you said that. All right. So, did you buy the house?
Not yet.
No,
we're still working on it. Yeah. One of the owners is incarcerated, so we have to get with him and, you know, his name's on the deed. So
okay, so I'm curious. I remember this now. You're telling me this. So incarcerated means he's in jail. In case somebody doesn't know that.
Yeah.
So what is the problem? Is the problem his willingness, or is the problem actually getting an attorney and ink and paper in front of him?
But first of all, they got to get his permission.
Okay.
Because the guy's been in prison for quite a few years. But him being on the deed, he has to sign off, obviously.
Okay. So, I know you asked me this question, I probably didn't give you an answer like this, but it just occurred to me a minute ago. So the first thing that has to happen is we have to get his permission. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that because somebody hasn't been there to ask him, or is it because he's saying no and we need to change it to a yes?
No, I don't think anyone's even mentioned it to him. He may not know about the taxes and losing the house.
I see. Yes. So I didn't tell you this before, and I apologize because, like I said, it just popped into my head because I know you did ask me this in a support ticket. Probably what we should do is send whoever the spokesperson is of the family, right? Whoever that is, it's one of them, with an attorney. And what you could do is, once you get his agreement, once the spokesperson of the family gets an agreement, the attorney can sign the incarcerated person can sign a power of attorney that would allow the attorney to sign documents for him or her. Then the closing can proceed. I didn't think of that until just now, but that's what, if I was in your shoes, I would say, hey, Susan, what we could do is get an attorney, have him draft up a power of attorney document, for the property, not for anything else, just for the property. And you guys should go visit this guy in jail and explain what's going on. And if he agrees, he can sign the power of attorney. And then when he comes back, we can put a deal together. Because the attorney will have power of attorney. Right? So don't get that confused, some of the listeners, because I'm using attorney, I'm using a definition, two definitions of attorney there. Okay, so power of attorney means that someone is giving the right to sign for them or make decisions for them. Right? And then obviously the other definition of attorney is the actual physical attorney that we're going to assign those rights to. Right? So we're going to give power of attorney to an attorney, not another member of the family. If we give it to another member of the family, there could be some, later on, well, they hoodwinked me, But if you give it to a third party, a licensed attorney, then what are they going to say? I mean, they could sue him for malpractice or something like that, but, it's a whole different case, Like if he gets out and he finds out, he didn't get enough of his money, or he felt like they didn't sell for enough money, or, God knows what people do, It's a lot safer for the family and a lot safer for you if the power of attorney is a third party that is a licensed attorney. So I know that, and I apologize, John, because it didn't come into my head until just now, but that's probably what we should do, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Good. Do you have any other questions or confusions or anything that happened with this deal? I know you have a couple of deals that you'd like to talk about.
This one, no, not necessarily. It's kind of at a standstill for now.
Okay, good. Is there any advice that you would like to give our listeners, because there's a lot of them, about actually getting in the house for the first time, actually talking to sellers, how hard, how easy, anything from your, and pardon the evaluation, but anything from your inexperience to a new section of experience that you would like to give our listeners? Any advice?
I mean, the only advice I could really give is, advice I'm learning to take my own right now, and which is working for me. Get on the phones, call. You don't have to pull lists and spend money. You have FSBOs that are free. I looked at the whole state of Texas. There's over 3,000 that I can call.
FSBO means for sale by owner, in case somebody doesn't know it. Go ahead.
And honestly, just get on the phone and practice. Once you feel like, I don't care if I buy this place, I just want to talk to somebody, it becomes a little bit easier.
Right. Which is what I was doing with my reluctant buyer kit, is teaching people, get in the house, study the seller, don't try to buy the house. And it makes it a lot easier. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're scared to talk to people, like, because I like talking to people. I just don't like talking to anybody. And that's always been my issue. Once I start talking, I'm okay.
Right.
I just don't like.
That is exactly what I found is what people don't like to do is start a conversation with a stranger.
Right.
Once that couple of seconds is broken, then it goes nice. My kids to this day, now Jesse is 30 years old. Emma is 27, and my son Brendan, who I don't talk about a lot because he's in Florida, my son Brendan he just turned 24. And all three of them, like literally, like harass me, like verbally, mentally harass me, because we go in any store, go anywhere, and I talk to people. I talk to the cashiers. I talk to anybody. Somebody standing, and it's not as much as it used to be, but I'm not, and it's not that I like to talk. It's just because I'm interested in people. I'll be at the deli at the grocery store, and it'd be like, I never had that kind of hand before. How is that? That kind of stuff. And my kids can't do that. The new generation's not used to that, I guess. But for whatever reason, probably because of my sales skills, I've learned to start those conversations, right? Because I know those first couple of seconds or minutes, sometimes it's usually a couple of seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Once you crack that ice and you start to talk to people, it's amazing how people will talk back to you. Especially in this business, because they're trying to sell a house. They want offers. They want to talk to people about this house. They want to talk to you because inherently they want to know if you're interested. Right? Now, we've talked about this on many other podcasts, right? Like, so when you talk to somebody, they don't want to sell you their house. Right? Like, this lady didn't want to sell you her house. Your first conversation. What she wanted to do is get a reality check of like where you're at and where she's at. Like, she wants $200,000 for the house and you want to give her $80,000. I'm making up numbers. She doesn't want to deal with that. But if she wants 200 and you're talking about 175, 180, something like that, or 200, then she feels like she has hope and that she should continue the conversation, right? So once you understand that, you can break the ice quickly, right, and get that going. So the last thing I want to say, while I'm choking on myself over here, thank you everybody for putting up with me coughing and all that. I almost didn't do the podcast because of that, but I figured you guys would understand. Last thing I want to say, and John, I'm sorry for doing this to you, but I can't help myself. We're on video right now. We're on what I call Flakebook or Two-Faced Book, whichever way you want to look at it, in ZooTube on video. And if you're on video, you can see John is wearing a shirt that says, "Need to sell your house?" I think that's freaking genius, right? How many of us can, look, I'll stand up. Oh, it says more. Oh, look at that. Need to sell your house. Got a picture of a house that says, "I buy houses." His t-shirt says that. I mean, honestly, how cool is that? Imagine standing in a grocery store or a convenience store with that shirt on. Dude, I've never done that. I'm going to do that now. I've never thought.
I've got quite a few of them and a couple of different styles. So.
And do people respond to it?
I actually just got these maybe a few weeks ago. So not yet, but we'll see how it goes.
I'm going to do it. I mean, we used to do that, 15 years ago, 12 years ago. Yellow shirts that say "I buy houses." But I didn't use that question, need to buy a house or need to sell a house. I mean, that's pretty freaking cool. So, all right. John, is there any parting words you would like to say before we bug out?
Just to the rookies, I mean, I'm still a rookie myself, so just keep grinding, man. You have to get out there and do it. I still get nervous, but you got to do it. If this is what you want to do, then you have to do the work. Don't question it, just do it. And I think you'll be all right.
Exactly. I say all the time, if offers aren't being made, you don't get paid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the middle of this podcast where you were just talking to somebody and they kind of told you all of their problems, right? Naturally, because it just happens that way. If you're just being polite and caring about people, right? It's customer service to the full potential. Just realize that this person in front of you needs customer service, and you're that customer service person, right? By doing that, oh my God, I'm ready to die over here. By doing that, that's making the offer. That's talking to a person. There is no better path of progress to put yourself into than that position. Actually having a intimate conversation with someone about their house and the problems it's causing them. That's making an offer. So if there's anything, that activity pays the most in your entire business. If you're not doing that, you have a hobby. If you're not in that position talking to people about their intimate feelings about this house and what it's doing to them and why it's affecting them, you don't have a business. You can't do that. Computer robots and automated texting and all these coaching programs can't do that for you. You have to do that for yourself. So the more you can do that, the better you will be off, the better you will be in the business. And the more you'll be able to do. Okay? So John, my hat's off to you. Really freaking great job, man. I hope that I want to help you, which I will. I kind of lost track of this deal because of my my illness, and I kind of lost track of the contest because I kicked off the contest. It was supposed to be 14 days, and I got sick in the middle of that. So it's a month later. So what I did is I kind of moved things away from the contest. If you want to get my 14-day email course, just go to flippinghouses4rookies.com/email course. If you have any questions or would like to contact John, I would imagine he'd be willing to talk to you. Just send me a support ticket, and I'll get you guys hooked up. And then don't forget to go in your description of wherever you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, and there's a link in there to my social there. So basically, what that means is I'm coming off of Facebook. I'm coming off all those channels. And the only place you'll be able to talk to me within the next 30 days will be in my own platform, which is called Bill Social Lair. And the reason why is it's private. I can't get kicked off of my own platform, and I can't have somebody tell me how to run my business there. You catch my breath. So that's the reason why I'm doing it. So go ahead and click on that. It's billslair.com and get in there, because that's where all the activity is going to happen. What happens is I haven't done it because I've been ill, but I will be doing it this week. Is I actually take God, this is difficult. I actually take recordings of me talking to sellers, and every so often drop a recording in the lair so you can hear me talking to sellers either on the phone or in the house. So that's one of the rewards, or one of the things that I do in the lair, because it is a private social media group, and I don't have to worry about it getting spread around, or Facebook, or anybody doing things that I don't want to have done. Okay, so with that said, again, I apologize for all my coughing today. Believe it or not, it's just cosmetic more than anything else. I feel much better, and things will slowly get back to normal like they were. And again, I apologize for all the listeners for the confusion and what happened over the last month, but I think you understand. All right, John, again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing your feelings and what we talked about today. It is very appreciated, I'm sure, from our listeners. I will send you any support tickets that come my way with questions or comments about what we did today, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. Over and out.